Hi all, this is a short video on an introduction to Excel. I think what you can see here is that we are using introduction to Excel. I'm showing you the Mac version, but the Mac version of Excel, but the PC version looks very similar. Okay, so what we're going to do in this video is just kind of show you how to do a basic introduction to the layout of Excel, and we'll show you how to do some basic computations. For example, we'll show you how to make a function f of x, and how would you find something like f of 1 or f of 2 or something like this. And our functions are probably going to be pretty simple. They're probably just going to be polynomials. Okay, so that should be pretty simple. And then that would probably be the end to this video. Okay, so what you can see here, we're looking at an Excel window. It is just a series of grids. On the vertical there are numbers, and on the horizontal these columns are labeled by letters. So if you click on any one of these blocks, you can see that this is the block cell reference up here, C9. And this is C6, and this is A4. So Excel is just basically just a series of cells. Each of these things that is highlighted in blue is a cell. And you can fill in those cells with numbers and then ask the computer, the Excel program, to do various operations on those cells. So for example, a typical example that you would want to do is, let's say that you have the function, say f of x is equal to x squared. Okay, so we know that you know that f of 1, for example, just mathematically on paper would be 1 squared. That would be 1. If you want f of 2, that would be 2 squared, which would give you 4. So we would know how to do that by hand. And if the function was maybe more complicated, let's say it was g of x was 3x squared minus 5 times x plus 25, well, maybe I can see that g of 0 is equal to 3 times 0 squared minus 5 times 0 plus 25 will just be 25. And g of 1, maybe if I'm feeling like plugging some numbers in, I would get 3 minus 5 plus 25, and that would be, what is that, 23? Okay, so you could do these computations by hand, or you're probably familiar with how to do those on your calculator. Let's show how to do these in Excel. So the way you're going to handle these in Excel, you can put certain values for x. Notice that in this problem, we have chosen our x values to be 1. We've chosen our x values to be 2 for the function f of x. And for the function g of x, we chose x is equal to 1, x is equal to 0, and x is equal to 1 for g of x. Okay, so what we're going to do here in Excel, we get used to thinking about it, we're going to label our columns. So we're going to create a column of x values, we're going to create a column of f of x values, and we're going to create a column of g of x values. Okay, now let's see here. We know that our x values, we chose 0, we chose 1, and we chose 2. Those were our x values that we chose on the right screen over here. So let's show how to do that computation in Excel. Well, in Excel, we have f of x, and we have created a formula for f of x. So the way you do a formula in Excel is simply click on the cell and hit equals. And now I need to square my function f of x was the squared function, but instead of typing x squared, which you would think you would do, that would be the mathematical way, where does your x variable, see, if you hit x, the computer doesn't know what x is. The computer knows that your x value lives in the A2, the A3, and the A4 position. So what you need to do, instead of x, you need to put A2. And you can see that if you type A2, that cell gets referenced. So it gets highlighted automatically in Excel. And if you say A2 squared, that's the equivalent of saying 2 squared. And now if you hit enter here, you know you should get an answer of 0 squared. That would be 0. Okay. Now if you want to type the formula again, you can hit equals, and you want to square. If you just click on this cell, it'll type the cell reference. You want to square 1, and that should give 1. And now you hit another formula, equals. You would like to square 2, which is in the A4 position, and the A4 position is our x value, and you'd like to square that, and you get 4. Okay. You could do the same thing for g of x. Our function g of x, however, was 3 times x squared minus 5 times x plus 25. But you need to fix this formula because, again, the computer doesn't know what x is. But if you hit x is equal to a2, x was equal to a2, this is going to be the particular value of x is equal to 0. And now you get the value 25. Now notice that we went through here in the previous formula f of x and we typed the formula each time. A2 squared, so here's our function f of x is equal to x squared. And we typed each time the particular value of x that we were squaring. So we went a2, a3, a4. But this formula is a bit more complicated, so I don't want to go here and type 3a3 squared minus 5a3 plus 25. What I would like to do instead is just use Excel's power. And here is something that you can see. If you just click on the lower right formula, you can see how the lower right of the cell, you can drag this formula just holding down the left click button, holding down left click, and then dragging the formula. You can see that now the formula gets copied, but it updates the x value to now be a3, which is this value. And if you go to the next formula, it updates it to be a4. So the advantage here is you can type the formula once, and then you can use Excel's drag and drop. That's the left click and hold down, and then drag the formula down. So watch what we can do now. If you highlight 2 of these cells, Excel is going to recognize that these numbers are differing by 1. So if you drag this and hold the left click button, hold left click, and then keep holding left click and just moving down, you can see here, and then letting go of your left click, you can see that we now have a bunch of numbers that are differing by 1, and we drag them down to when x is 10. So now you can see here that I can click this formula with a left click and drag this formula down, drag this, left click, and hold, and then drag the formula down. And now you can see, for example, that what we can say is that f of 6, for example, f of 6 would be equal to 36. That's what we are seeing here. And I'm also seeing that g of 6 is equal to 103. So if you were to put 6 into this formula here, you should get 103 as your answer. Okay, so that's a basic introduction to the computations and using formulas in Excel and using cell references and drag and drop. So with the basic layout, we talked about cells, we talked about cell references, cell referencing. Cell referencing was the fact that you click on this cell and you can see that this is the cell A3. And the advantage of that was you could say, for example, that you want to do a formula with the equal sign, A3 squared. So we talked about cell referencing. We talked about formulas using the equal sign. We talked about drag and drop formulas. Okay, and then we showed how to make a formula f of x and then basically have Excel do all these mathematical calculations for us. So in the next video we're going to talk about how to take these values and get graphical information from them. So that would be the subject of the next video.